Hey, I've got a question for you today on Daily Hope. Have you ever had a situation in your life where you clearly knew this is what God's will is, it's what God wants, but what you want is something different? And two things can happen, at least two in that situation. One, we can surrender to God's will and say, I'm just going to abandon what I want. Or we can say, God, I'm just choosing my way, forget your way. You know what's kind of scary? If we choose our way long enough, God will let us have our own way. That's a scary thing. It's like a kid who wants to go play on a busy street and run between the cars. God's way is always to protect us from our way. In the book of Romans, chapter 1, it says of humanity that as people continually were exposed to the truth of God and turned away, that God finally, quote, gave them over to their own lusts or desires. In other words, if you say long enough, God, I don't want you, He'll eventually let you go your own way. That's exactly what happened with the nation of Israel. We're going through the Bible one book at a time, and we're looking at a thematic verse from each book of the Bible. The book of 1 Samuel is the transition from an era where God was using spiritual leaders called judges to the era of kings. And interestingly, God's original and best plan wasn't for kings because it concentrates a lot of power in one person. And anytime that happens with anyone other than Jesus, corruption happens, injustice happens. God, in chapter 8, verse 7, says to Samuel, the final of the judges and the prophets who would lead before the kings, God says to Samuel, do everything they say to you, the Lord replied, for they are rejecting me, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. And then God says this to this final prophet from the era of Judges, quote, do as they ask. In other words, give them their way, but solemnly warn them about the way a king will rule over them. So God, even when we choose to go our own way, lovingly says, I'm telling you, it's not going to end well for you. Here's probably our best application today. Let's search our hearts for any area of our life where we've been going our own way, and let's just say today, God, we turn away from ourselves. We want your way in our lives. We choose you. We submit to you. See you tomorrow for more Daily Hope.